The red alert lights flashed across the bridge of the USS Defender as Admiral Jake Harrison stood watching the stars. His gray uniform bore the scars of 20 years defending human space. The communication officer turned to him with worry in her eyes. "Sir, we have an emergency transmission from Ambassador Lisa Morgan on Nexus Prime. She says it's urgent." Jake nodded and walked to the main screen. The image flickered and showed Lisa's face. She looked tired and scared. Behind her, Jake could see the great hall of the Galactic Council with its towering pillars and strange alien lights. "Jake, thank God I reached you," Lisa said. Her voice shook slightly. "Something terrible has happened. The Zephyrian Empire has returned." Jake felt his blood run cold. Every human in space knew the old stories about the Zephyrians. They were the ancient race that had ruled the galaxy 1,000 years ago. Most people thought they were just legends. "Are you sure?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded. 3 star systems on the outer rim have gone completely dark. No communications, no ships, nothing. The Council sent scouts to investigate. Only 1 ship came back. The screen changed to show grainy footage from a damaged scout ship. Jake watched in horror as massive silver creatures moved through space like living metal whales. They weren't ships in any normal sense. They looked alive, with surfaces that rippled and changed. One of the creatures opened what looked like a mouth and swallowed an entire space station. "Dear God," Jake whispered. "It gets worse," Lisa continued. "The Zerians lost their entire 5th Fleet. You know how good they are at hiding their ships. These things found them anyway and destroyed them all in minutes. The Vorthan Collective tried to fight them with their best energy shields. The creatures just ate the energy and grew stronger." Jake had fought alongside both races. The Zerians were masters of stealth warfare. Their ships could disappear completely from sensors. The Vorthans had shields that could stop anything. If both races had failed so completely, humanity was in serious trouble. "What does the Council want from us?" Jake asked, though he already feared the answer. Lisa's face grew pale. "They're calling an emergency session in 1 hour. Council Speaker Thane has already made it clear what they're planning. They want humanity to serve as a buffer zone." "A buffer zone?" "They want us to give up 50% of our territory and half our population. Those people would be relocated to the frontier worlds between Council space and the Zephyrians. The idea is that the creatures will be busy consuming human worlds while the Council races prepare their defenses." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "They want to feed us to these monsters? In exchange, the remaining human worlds would receive full Council protection and citizenship. They're calling it a necessary sacrifice for the greater good of Galactic." Civilization? The bridge fell silent. Every officer was listening to the conversation. Jake could see the anger and fear in their faces. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster, his tactical officer, stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, that's not protection. That's surrender." Jake looked at the young officer. She was right. Humanity had spent 200 years building their civilization. Among the stars, they had fought pirates, survived disasters, and carved out a place in the galaxy through hard work and determination. Now the Council wanted them to give it all up. "Lisa, how long do we have to answer?" 72 hours. The Council is meeting now to formalize the demand. They'll present it to you officially within the hour." Jake closed his eyes and thought about Earth. His wife Sarah lived there with their 2 children. Millions of families were going about their normal lives, not knowing that their government was about to receive an impossible choice. "Admiral," the communication officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President, Helen Carter wants to speak with you immediately." "Put her through." President Carter appeared on a second screen. She was a strong woman who had led humanity through several crises. But Jake had never seen her look so grim. Admiral Harrison, I assume Ambassador Morgan has briefed you on the situation. Yes, Madam President. A council wants us to sacrifice half our people. I've already spoken with General Peter Brooks and the other Joint Chiefs. We're calling an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly. But I want your assessment first. You're our most experienced fleet commander. Can we fight these creatures? Jake looked at the footage still playing on the other screen. The silver bioships moved through space with deadly grace. They seemed to have no weakness that normal weapons could exploit. I don't know, Madam President, but I do know that giving up half our people isn't protection. It's just delayed execution. President Carter nodded. My thoughts exactly. We didn't come this far to become sacrificial lambs for the Council. General. Brooks appeared on the screen next to the President. He was a big man with scars from the Martian colony wars. His voice was rough with anger. These Council races have looked down on us for decades. They think we're primitive because we still use kinetic weapons and chemical propulsion. Now they want us to die for them. General, President Carter said calmly, what's your recommendation? We fight. We've never backed down from a challenge. Before, I'd rather die free than live as someone else's shield. Jake found himself nodding. The general was right. Humanity had always faced impossible odds. When the first colonists left Earth, experts said they would never survive in space. When pirates attacked the outer colonies, the Council said humans were too weak to defend themselves. Every time, humanity had proven the doubters wrong. Admiral, President Carter continued, I want you to take the fleet to the frontier and see what we're really dealing with. If these Zephyrians are as dangerous as the Council claims, we need to know their weaknesses. Yes, Madam President. And Admiral, General Brooks added, start preparing for war. If the Council wants to throw, U.S. to the wolves, we'll show them how wolves bite back. The transmission ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. He looked out at the stars and wondered if humanity was making the right choice. The smart thing might be to accept the Council's offer. Half of humanity would survive, and that was better than total extinction. But Jake knew his people. Humans didn't choose the smart path when the right path was available. They had always chosen freedom over safety, courage over comfort. It was what made them human. He turned to his bridge crew. Set course for the frontier. We're going to take a look at these Zephyrians ourselves. Sir, Amy Foster asked, what if the Council is right? What if we can't win? Jake smiled grimly. Then we'll lose fighting on our feet instead of living on our knees. Send word to all human ships. It's time to see what we're made of. The USS Defender turned toward the outer rim, carrying humanity toward a choice that would echo through galactic history. President Helen Carter stood before the United Earth Assembly as billions of humans watched from across the galaxy. The Great Hall in New Geneva was packed with representatives from every human world. Behind her, Admiral Jake Harrison and General Peter Brooks stood at attention, their uniforms pressed and their faces stern. The chamber fell completely silent as Carter stepped to the podium. She had spent the last 72 hours in meetings with her advisors, military leaders, and colony governors. Every option had been discussed. Every possible outcome had been considered. Now it was time to give the Galactic Council their answer. My fellow humans, Carter began, her voice carrying clearly through the speakers to every corner of human space. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council presented us with an ultimatum. They demanded that we sacrifice 50% of our territory and half of our people to serve as a buffer against the Zephyrian Empire. Angry murmurs rose from the assembly. Carter raised her hand for silence. They promised that the survivors would receive council protection and citizenship. They called this a necessary sacrifice for the greater good of galactic civilization. Her voice grew harder. I am here to give them our answer. Carter paused and looked directly into the camera that would broadcast her words across the galaxy. We? Refuse. The assembly erupted in cheers and applause. Carter waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Humanity will not sacrifice half our people to save those who view us as expendable. We did not claw our way to the stars to become someone else's shield. If the Zephyrians want to reach Council space, they will have to go through every human, ship, every defended world, and every Marine who draws breath. The reaction from Council space was immediate and harsh. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Lisa Morgan watched in horror as Council security forces surrounded her. The insectoid guards clicked their weapons and gestured for her to follow them. Ambassador Morgan. Council Speaker Thane's voice buzzed through his translator. By order of the Galactic Council, you are to be escorted from Council territory immediately. Your species has chosen to endanger all civilized life in the galaxy. Lisa held her head high as she was led away. History will remember who stood for what was right, Speaker Thane, and who chose to sacrifice the innocent. Within hours, the Council's punishment began. All trade agreements with human worlds were terminated. Human ships were banned from Council space. Diplomatic channels were severed. The galactic community turned its back on humanity, leaving them to face the Zephyrian threat alone. On Earth, Dr. Rachel Stone worked frantically in her laboratory, deep beneath the Terran Research Division headquarters. As head of the division, she had been analyzing every piece of data about the Zephyrian attacks. The scattered reports from destroyed worlds painted a terrifying picture, but Rachel believed there might be hope hidden in the details. Computer, display all recorded combat footage from Zephyrian encounters, she said. Holographic displays filled the room with images of the alien bioships. Rachel watched the creatures move through space with fluid grace. Their silvery hulls rippled like living skin. When Council ships fired energy weapons at them, the bioships seemed to absorb the attacks and grow stronger. Interesting, Rachel muttered. She had noticed something the Council analysts had missed. Every time a bioship was hit with energy weapons, it adapted within seconds. But there were brief moments, lasting only microseconds, when the creatures seemed to hesitate. Computer, slow down the footage from the Vorthan engagement. Focus on the moment when the bioship first encounters kinetic debris from the destroyed station. The image slowed to show a piece of twisted metal spinning through space. When it struck the bioship's hull, the creature's surface rippled strangely. For just an instant, it seemed confused. Rachel's eyes widened. They're not used to simple physical impacts. Their organic computers are designed to counter energy-based attacks, but they need time to analyze purely kinetic threats. Meanwhile, at the edge of human space, Captain Kevin Turner commanded the exploration vessel USS Pathfinder. His orders were to make contact with the Zephyrians and gather intelligence. It was a dangerous mission that most people considered suicide. Pathfinder dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Centauri Station, a human outpost that had gone silent 3 days earlier. Kevin could see the station was still intact, but strange silver growths covered its hull like metal coral. Captain, his communications officer reported, were being scanned by something. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. A massive bioship materialized beside the station. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull flowed like liquid mercury, and Kevin could swear he saw what looked like eyes studying his ship. This is Captain Kevin Turner of the human vessel Pathfinder. He broadcast on all frequencies. We request communication with the Zephyrian Empire. The response came in a voice that sounded like music, mixed with the whisper of wind through metal. Humans, we have heard your species refused the Council's offer. This is ... amusing. We seek understanding, Kevin replied. Why have you returned to this galaxy? We return because this galaxy is ours. 1,000 years ago, we ruled here. The current races are weak descendants of those we once conquered. They have grown soft with their energy weapons and their peaceful ways. Kevin felt a chill. What do you want with humanity? Your species is young and shows promise. You might provide worthy entertainment before your inevitable absorption into our collective. We respect strength, human. Your refusal to surrender without fighting shows more courage than the entire council combined. The bioship began to move. Away from the station. Prepare yourselves, humans. We come not as conquerors, but as harvesters. Your struggle will make the feast more satisfying. Back on Earth, the machinery of war was already in motion. General Brooks had converted civilian factories to produce weapons and ammunition. Shipyards that once built cargo vessels now worked day and night to create warships. Every human world was evacuating non-essential personnel and preparing for siege. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, watching the organized chaos of preparation. His fleet had grown from 30 ships to over 200 as civilian vessels were armed and pressed into service. Mining ships carried rail guns. Cargo haulers were fitted with missile launchers. Even passenger liners had been converted into hospital ships. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster reported, Dr. Stone is requesting a priority conference with Fleet Command. Rachel Stone appeared on the main screen, her lab coat wrinkled from days of constant work. Admiral, I believe. I've found something important. The Zephyrian bioships have a weakness that energy-based weapons can't exploit, but our kinetic weapons might. Explain, Harrison said. Their organic computers are designed to counter advanced energy attacks, but they need time to analyze simple physical projectiles. If we concentrate old-fashioned railgun fire on single targets, we might punch through their defenses before they can adapt. General Brooks nodded approvingly. Kinetic weapons. The Council always looked down on us for using primitive ballistic weapons. Maybe that's exactly what we need. President Carter's voice came over the communication system. All stations, this is the President. I want every railgun, every missile, and every piece of kinetic ammunition we can manufacture. If the Council thinks we're primitive, let's show them what primitive weapons can do. As human space prepared for war, the Zephyrian fleet was accelerating toward the inner systems. Their bioships moved through space like predators sensing prey. The aliens seemed amused by humanity's defiance, viewing it as the last desperate act of a species too foolish to understand the futility of resistance. But humanity had never been known for choosing the easy path. As the two forces moved toward their inevitable collision, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same after this war ended. The Battle of Wolf 359 began at dawn. Ship time. Admiral Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defender, watching 30 human vessels face off against 12 Zephyrian bioships. The alien creatures hung in space like silver dragons, their hulls rippling with organic movement. All ships report ready, Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster announced from her tactical station. Her hands moved quickly over the controls as she coordinated the fleet's weapon systems. Jake nodded. Grimly, this was humanity's first real test against the Zephyrians. Everything depended on Dr. Stone's theory about kinetic weapons. If she was wrong, 30 ships and 3,000 human lives would be lost in the next few minutes. Remember the plan, Jake broadcast to all ships. Concentrate fire on single targets. Use railguns and kinetic missiles only. No energy weapons until we see how they respond. The Zephyrian bioships moved forward with deadly grace. Their surfaces began to glow as they charged their weapons. Jake had seen the footage from Council battles. Those weapons could dissolve entire ships in seconds. Here they come, Amy reported. Zephyrian vessels are accelerating to attack speed. The first bioship opened fire. A beam of silver light lanced across space and struck the human destroyer USS Hampton. The ship's hull began to bubble and melt like hot metal. Within seconds, the Hampton was nothing but expanding gas and debris. All ships returned fire. Jake ordered .30 human vessels, unleashed everything they had. Railguns fired solid slugs at incredible speeds. Missile launchers sent clouds of kinetic warheads toward the bioships. The space between the two fleets filled with deadly metal projectiles. The results were not what Jake expected. The bioships' hulls absorbed most of the impacts without visible damage. Their organic armor rippled and flowed, distributing the kinetic energy across their entire structure. Within moments, 3 more human ships were destroyed by the alien silver beams. "It's not working," Amy reported with panic in her voice. "The kinetic rounds aren't penetrating their hulls." Jake watched another human ship die and felt despair. Rising in his chest, Dr. Stone had been wrong. Humanity's primitive weapons were useless against creatures that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Then Amy noticed something strange on her sensors. "Admiral, wait, look at this." When we hit that bioship with concentrated railgun fire, its hull stopped moving for almost 3 seconds. It was like the creature froze. Jake studied the tactical display. Amy was right. Every time multiple gun rounds hit the same spot on a bioship, the alien vessel hesitated. Its organic computers seemed to need time to analyze the purely physical attacks. "All ships, new targeting protocol," Jake ordered. "Focus all railgun fire on the lead bioship. Every gun, same target, same spot on its hull. 28 remaining." Human vessels turned their weapons on a single enemy. Hundreds of solid slugs hammered into the bioship's forward section. The alien creature's hull rippled wildly as it tried to adapt to the physical impacts. For 5 long seconds, the bioship hung motionless in space. Its organic computers were overloaded, trying to analyze and counter the kinetic barrage. That was all the time Jake needed. Now, pour everything into that same spot. The concentrated fire punched through the bioship's hull like a hammer through glass. The creature convulsed as its internal fluids spilled into space. Strange lights flickered along its surface before it went dark and began to drift. A cheer went up across the human fleet. They had killed their first Zephyrian. "Target the next one," Jake ordered. Same strategy. Overwhelm their adaptive systems with concentrated kinetic fire. The battle continued for 2 hours. The humans learned to work together, focusing their fire to punch through bioship defenses before the creatures could adapt. By the end, 3 Zephyrian vessels were destroyed, and the remaining 9 had retreated deeper into space, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Only 18 human ships survived the battle. 12 vessels and over 1,000 crew members were lost. Jake stared at the casualty reports and wondered if humanity could afford many more victories like this one. News of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. For the first time in months, galactic news feeds reported something other than Zephyrian advances. Several council races began quietly reaching out to human military advisors, asking about kinetic warfare tactics they had abandoned centuries ago. Captain Susan Blake commanded the mining vessel turned warship, USS Prospector. Her ship was part of a new strategy developed after Wolf 359. Instead of facing the bioships in direct battle, human forces would use hit-and-run attacks with modified civilian vessels. Susan's ship looked like any other mining hauler, but hidden. In its cargo bays were massive railguns salvaged from destroyed warships. She waited in the asteroid belt near Kepler Station as a Zephyrian patrol approached. 3 bioships incoming, her sensor operator reported. "They're not scanning us. They think we're just a civilian mining ship." Susan smiled grimly. "Let them. Get close. Wait until they're right on top of us. The bioships glided past the asteroids, ignoring the seemingly harmless mining vessel. When the lead creature was less than a kilometer away, Susan gave the order. Fire! The prospectors' hidden weapons emerged from concealed bays and opened fire at point-blank range. The lead bioship had no time to adapt before kinetic rounds tore through its hull. It died in seconds, its organic systems shut down by massive internal damage. The other two bioships turned to attack, but Susan was already moving. The prospector dove into the asteroid field, using the floating rocks as cover. The alien vessels followed, their silver beams melting asteroids as they tried to target the human ship. "Come on, you ugly things," Susan muttered. "Follow me into my playground." She led the bioships deeper into the asteroid field, where two more modified mining ships waited in ambush. The Zephyrians found themselves caught in a crossfire of kinetic weapons. Both creatures died before they could signal for help. These tactics proved that human adaptability and willingness to use unconventional methods could achieve what the Council's advanced technology could not. Each small victory taught humanity more about their enemy while buying time for Earth's massive war production effort. However, the Zephyrians were also learning. Their response to humanity's kinetic advantage came swiftly and brutally. New bioships began appearing with hardened carapaces that could withstand railgun fire. Others developed segmented designs that could sacrifice damaged sections while continuing to fight. Admiral Harrison received reports of the new Zephyrian adaptations from scouts across the frontier. The aliens were evolving their ships to counter human tactics. What had worked at Wolf 359 was becoming less effective with each engagement. "They're getting smarter," Amy Foster reported during a strategy meeting aboard the Defender. "The newer bioships have thicker armor and better damage control. Our railguns aren't punching through like they used to." Jake studied the tactical reports with growing concern. Humanity had proven they could hurt the Zephyrians, but the aliens were adapting faster than humans could develop new tactics. The war was escalating, and both sides were learning deadly lessons from each battle. "We need bigger guns," Jake decided. "Contact Earth. Tell them we need every heavy railgun they can manufacture. If the bioships are getting harder to kill, we'll just have to hit them harder." The race was on. Humanity had bought themselves time and respect through courage and clever tactics, but the Zephyrians were preparing their response. The real test was yet to come. 6 months after the first shots were fired, the Zephyrian Empire decided to end the war once and for all. 300 bioships, each the size of a city, moved toward the Sol system like a silver tide of death. Smaller fleets surrounded every human colony, cutting off escape routes and supply lines. Admiral Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the massive battleship USS Sovereign, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Through the viewports, he could see the Earth's moon in the distance. His home world was behind him, and the largest alien armada in galactic history was ahead. "Final fleet count, Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster reported. "We have 150 human vessels ready for battle. Every ship we could build, repair, or convert is here." Jake nodded grimly. The odds were 2-1 against them, and that was assuming human tactics still worked against the evolved bioships. Recent battles had shown that the Zephyrians were getting harder to kill. Their new designs could absorb tremendous damage while continuing to fight. "Any word from Dr. Stone?" Jake asked. "She's ready, sir. The weapon is loaded and waiting for your order." Dr. Rachel Stone had spent the last 3 months developing humanity's final gambit. Working from captured bioship fragments, she had created something she called the Terran virus. It was a synthetic plague designed to target the organic components of Zephyrian technology. The virus could spread through the bioships, living systems, and shut down their organic computers. But it had to be deployed at close range, which meant human ships would have to get through the alien fleet's defenses. Captain Martinez, are your volunteers ready? Jake asked over the communication system that Captain Tony Martinez commanded a squadron of 20 stealth ships, each carrying viral payloads that had to be manually deployed. Every pilot in his unit had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. "We're ready, Admiral," Tony replied. "My people know what's at stake. We'll get the virus to those bioships or die trying." The Battle of Sol began when the Zephyrian fleet entered the outer edge of the solar system. The alien bioships moved in perfect formation, their hulls glowing with deadly energy. They had learned from previous battles and were taking no chances. With humanity's kinetic weapons, "All ships engage the enemy," Jake ordered. The human fleet opened fire with everything they had. Railguns hurled solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Missile launchers sent clouds of kinetic warheads toward the bioships. The space between Mars and Jupiter filled with deadly metal, but the new Zephyrian designs were ready for human tactics. Their hardened carapaces deflected most railgun rounds. When concentrated fire did punch through their armor, the bioships simply sealed off damaged sections and continued fighting. "We're barely scratching them," Amy reported with frustration. In her voice, "Their new armor is too thick for our weapons." Jake watched human ships die one by one as silver beams cut through their hulls. The USS Colorado exploded in a ball of fire. The destroyer Hampton, too, followed seconds later. At this rate, the human fleet would be destroyed before the stealth. Ships could get close enough to deploy the virus. "All ships, new plan," Jake announced. "We're going to ram them." The bridge fell silent. Amy stared at Jake in shock. "Sir, that's suicide." "Maybe," Jake replied. "But if we can't punch through their armor, we'll crack it open the hard way. All ships, prepare for ramming speed. Target the largest bioships." Captain Susan Blake, commanding the converted mining ship USS Prospector, was the first to respond. "Copy that, Admiral. It's been an honor serving with you all." 20 human vessels broke formation and accelerated toward the largest bioships at maximum speed. The Zephyrians tried to destroy them with energy beams, but the human ships were moving too fast and too erratically. Some were hit and destroyed, but others made it through. The USS Prospector struck a bioship the size of a space station. The impact cracked the alien creature's hardened shell like an eggshell. Susan Blake died in the collision, but her sacrifice opened a gap in the bioship's defenses. More human ships followed her example. The destroyer USS Phoenix rammed another bioship, breaking through its armor and exposing its organic interior. The cruiser USS Liberty crashed into a third creature, creating massive damage that the bioship could not repair. "Now, Martinez," Jake ordered, "get your people through those gaps." Captain Tony Martinez led his stealth squadron through the chaos of the battle. His ships were small and fast, designed to slip past enemy defenses. They used the damage created by the ramming attacks to get close to the bioship's exposed sections. "Deploying virus payload," Tony reported as his ship approached a wounded bioship. He fired the viral canisters directly into the creature's organic systems. Package delivered. "Good luck, everyone." Tony's ship was destroyed by Zephyrian defenders seconds later, but the virus was already spreading. The bioship began to convulse as the synthetic plague attacked its living components. Strange lights flickered along its hull before it went. Completely dark, other stealth ships followed Tony's example. One by one, they delivered their viral payloads before being destroyed by enemy fire. The mission cost humanity 20 ships and 400 volunteers, but the Terran virus began to spread through the biofleet like wildfire. The effect was devastating. Battleships that had seemed invincible suddenly began shutting down as their organic computers failed. Some creatures tried to purge their infected systems, but the virus spread too quickly. Others simply drifted in space as their living hulls died around them. Within an hour, half the Zephyrian fleet was dead or dying. The remaining bioships pulled back from Earth, their formation broken and their confidence shattered. Then something unexpected happened. The lead bioship sent a communication signal to the human fleet. "Human Commander," the musical voice said, "we request parley." Jake was surprised, but agreed to talk. The bioship that approached the Sovereign was massive and beautiful, its hull flowing like liquid silver. A section of its surface opened to reveal a chamber filled with strange lights. The Zephyrian Commander appeared on the main screen. It looked like a cross between a jellyfish and a butterfly, with delicate tentacles and wings that shimmered with changing colors. "I am Fleet Commander Zara of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. "Your species has impressed us, human. We expected you to surrender when faced with extinction, as the Council races would have done." "We don't surrender," Jake replied firmly. "That's not who we are. Indeed, we respect only strength, and you have shown great strength. Your willingness to face death rather than submit proves your worthiness. We offer you a treaty recognizing humanity as equals and granting you territorial sovereignty." Jake was stunned. After months of brutal warfare, the Zephyrians were offering peace. "What are your terms?" "No terms, only respect. You have earned your place in this galaxy through courage and sacrifice. We will withdraw from human space and recognize your borders. In return, we ask only that you remember this lesson. Strength comes not from advanced technology, but from the will to fight for what you believe in." The war ended as suddenly as it had begun. The Zephyrian fleet departed for the Outer Rim, leaving humanity in control of their territory. But the end of the war brought unexpected consequences from an unexpected source. Council races that had abandoned humanity now approached with new trade agreements and alliance proposals. Ambassador Lisa Morgan returned to Nexus Prime to find herself welcomed as a hero, representing the species that had saved galactic civilization. President Helen Carter stood before a joint session of the United Earth Assembly and the Galactic Council. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all eager to hear from the humans who had achieved the impossible. "We will share our military knowledge and serve as the galaxy's rapid response force against future threats," Carter announced. "But never again will humanity be asked to sacrifice our people for others' safety. We have proven that some principles are worth dying for." The USS Sovereign now patrolled the galactic rim with a crew of humans and volunteers from council races who wanted to learn human tactics. Admiral Harrison often stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars and thinking about the price of their victory. Thousands of human lives had been lost, but their sacrifice had meaning. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through diplomacy or superior technology, but through the simple refusal to abandon their values when faced with extinction. The galaxy was safer because humanity had chosen to fight rather than surrender, and that choice would echo through history for generations to come.